Greetings, nature nerds, and welcome to a new episode of Ask an Ecologist. My name is Suzanne Simpson. I'm an ecologist with Bayou Land Conservancy, and each week I take your questions about the natural world and we take a deeper dive into some of the topics that you want to know more about. A quick housekeeping item before I begin this week. If you are looking to catch up on old episodes of Ask an Ecologist, they are available on Bayou Conservancy's YouTube. We've created a playlist of all of the episodes. So if you missed one or want to watch one again, check out our YouTube channel. They're all listed right there. All right, let's get into your questions for the week. Our first question comes from Michael Nelson, who asks, shortly before dusk, bats come out and fly overhead, but then disappear after 5 minutes. What were they doing while flying overhead? Where did they go? Do they find humans while flying overhead that they will bite and turn to vampires? Great question, Michael. Well, first I can tell you that you have summer bats, and you don't need to worry about turning into a glittery vampire, because chances are the bats that you have flying around your neighborhood are Mexican free-tail bats, and we do see an increase in their activity during the spring and summer months when it gets warmer here. Now, bats are incredibly social animals, and they're also voracious predators of mosquitoes. And they've had a historically bad reputation that luckily, through public education, has gotten rectified in recent years. A single bat can eat between 2,000 and 3,000 mosquitoes every single night. So this is an animal that we need in our ecosystems. We are drowning in mosquitoes as it is. So what's happening with what you're seeing is the bats are coming out from their roost, and they're basically having a company meeting and flying above your head. They are maybe, exchanging travel plans, catching up with the latest news, and then they head out to feed all night long on mosquitoes. Bats can easily travel 50 miles each way for feeding. And some of the Waugh Bridge bats in Houston have been recorded going as far as College Station overnight. So bats are busy creatures, they're social, and they are hungry. And so I'm glad that you have some bats in your neighborhood and that you're able to appreciate them. And I hope that you're able to maintain the habitat that they're hanging out in. So thank you for your question, and 2 thumbs up for bats. Okay, so I wanted to spend a good amount of time focusing on a question that I've gotten recently about fireflies. So the other week, I went out to one of Bayou Land Conservancy's newest preserves on Spring Creek to go watch the sunset. And after the sun had gone down, I saw these blinking lights around the creek and around the wetlands. And I got super excited because those are fireflies, and I have not seen them in a long time in Houston, number one, but on Spring Creek. So I was absolutely pumped to see that we had this this remnant firefly population along the creek. And I have had several people ask me, where are the fireflies going? Perhaps you've seen them when you were growing up and you don't see them anymore. They're eponymous with summer. We think about camping and cookouts and pools, and fireflies are a big cultural part of what it means to be summer in America. So a lot of folks are understandably wondering what's happening to the fireflies in their neighborhood. Well, scientists are just starting to study the firefly decline in population. So while we don't have a ton of robust data, and by the way, fireflies are not unique in not having a lot of robust population data, that's really hard to gather, there are a lot of anecdotal reports about firefly populations decreasing nationwide. So scientists are also learning what's leading to those decreases, but there are 2 culprits that are emerging predominantly, first of all. So we have habitat loss, and we have light pollution. Now, habitat loss can't be overstated. Fireflies gravitate towards warm, humid areas that are near water. So Houston should be the absolute perfect habitat for a firefly. But what we have lost over the years is thousands of acres of wetland habitats that fireflies depend on. That's where fireflies want to be. And in fact, fireflies are good indicator species for high quality wetlands. So whenever the wetlands go away, so do your fireflies. And that is a big reason why people aren't seeing fireflies in Houston in places where they used to. There's been such rapacious habitat loss over the past few decades. It has impacted their populations considerably. Now, another aspect that's impacting their populations is light pollutions. Light pollution. We have talked about the merits of dark skies on Ask an Ecologist in the past, and this is just another example of why dark skies are important. If you're a firefly, your method of communication is blinking towards your other fellow fireflies. And that is how they communicate with one another. That's how they attract mates. And studies have shown that car headlights can discombobulate firefly signals for a few minutes. So if car headlights can do that, imagine the impact of highways, of neighborhoods, of strip malls, when you have all of that artificial light flooding firefly populations. It's sort of like having a spotlight shined on you when you're in the middle of a deep sleep in your room. It takes a long time to recover from that. So that has been a huge problem for fireflies, is the influx of light pollution. Additionally, fireflies, like a lot of flying insects, spend the majority of their life in a larval state, where they're actually ground dwelling. Dragonflies are very similar in that way. And while they are ground dwelling, they are feasting on snails and slugs in the grass and in the terrestrial area. So the increased use of pesticides in people's lawns and people's backyards has also had an adverse impact on the amount of prey that firefly larvae are able to consume. And so in turn, you're going to get a decrease of population when there's not enough prey to sustain healthy firefly numbers. So what can you do? Well, a bit of good news. Fireflies have shown that their populations are responsive to restoration. So whenever wetland habitats are restored, fireflies can return to that area. And a great example is our friends at the Katy Prairie Conservancy. They're a land trust that focuses on prairie habitat in far west Houston. And they restored a wetland and noticed that as the wetland was starting to become healthier and healthier, the fireflies were returning. And that's terrific news for us as ecological practitioners, because we want to know that if we build it, they will come. And quite literally, they will. If you restore it, fireflies seem to be coming back to the places that they once occupied. So that's good news for people that want to see fireflies back in their ecosystems again. A few things that you can do to help support the firefly populations in your community are, and I listed them out. You can limit your pesticide use, or you can eliminate your pesticide use entirely. That's going to help the larvae out. That's going to increase the amount of prey that they can eat, and it's going to make sure that they don't get poisoned, essentially, by the pesticides that you're using. Another thing you can do is, if you live near a wetland area, you can leave some longer grass in your yard or plant native plants. I feel like I say that on every Ask an Ecologist, but it really is that important. Planting native plants to attract firefly larvae and providing some shelter for them, because when you have really short grass, there's not a place for the firefly larvae to hide from predators, and so they're not able to thrive in that type of habitat. So letting the grass grow out a little bit longer, planting some native plants to provide shelter for firefly larvae is another great and pretty easy thing that you can do to help out. Another thing you can do to combat light pollution is to turn off your lights at night. Try to have as few outdoor lights as possible so that the fireflies are able to talk to one another and they're able to find each other to mate and make more fireflies. And then finally, you can report firefly observations that you see to the Firefly Watch Citizen Science Project, which is an organization that's tracking firefly movements, or you can report them to iNaturalist, which is a website that we've talked about before, where you can report nature observations in your backyard. So a couple of things that you can do to help facilitate and propagate firefly populations in your local area. Now, I am going to show off the one flower that I have in my backyard right now. In spite of me doing this show, I am pretty bad at propagating native plants, but I have had some success recently, and it is certainly proof that if I can do it, anyone can do it. Because previously, if I've bought plants, I'm just charged with aggravated assault because it's just considered that that plant's going to die within a couple of weeks. So I am going to show you the 1 or 2 plants that I have successfully cultivated in my backyard, and I've already seen some pollinators visiting them. So come along with me. Okay, I'm going to put you down. Do you see that? That is lemon bee balm, and it is the first bloom that I have in my growing native plant garden. And then right next to it is a window, and right there is Liatris, or prairie blazing star, which it's not blooming, but it's also not dead. So for me, that's kind of a win. So I want to encourage you to keep at it with your native plant gardens. I have failed so many times. I got these plants from the Houston Arboretum's native plant sale a couple months ago, and 2 months into it, they're looking really good. So remember to submit your questions to Ask an Ecologist via Facebook message. You can email us at info@bayouland.org. Check out previous episodes on our YouTube channel, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining me.